What up everybody, Joe here, and today we're going to talk about some never released versions of Windows. So let's get started. The first one we're going to talk about today is Windows Cairo. Just like the city in Egypt. This was a project under development at Microsoft from 1991 through 1996, and it looked like Windows 95, and it actually influenced the look of Windows 95 because they were working on Cairo before they had started the Windows Chicago project, which is Windows 95. And Windows 95 ended up being based on the design of the Cairo user interface. So the project was killed. The next one is Windows Nashville, just like the city in Tennessee. It was actually named Windows Cleveland before it was changed to Nashville. It was scheduled to be released in 1996. Now this little bit is kind of interesting. Scheduled for release in 1996, some were calling it Windows 96. So if you ever hear of Windows 96, it never was released. It was Windows Nashville. This is the interesting part. So Windows 95, which was Chicago, was scheduled to be released in 1995. At this point, it was actually scheduled to be released before that, at a previous point. But at this point, it was scheduled for 1995. And then Windows 98, which was Windows Memphis, that was the code name for the project. Memphis was scheduled to be released in 97. So then they had Nashville thrown in there, scheduled for 96. So they actually planned on releasing 3 operating systems right in a row, the year after year like that. But they just ended up canceling Nashville, and then they put Memphis into the 1998 year, which it became named Windows 98. The whole goal of Windows Nashville is they were trying to get better integration between Internet Explorer and Windows. Kind of like they have now, but they were trying to do that way back then. So the next one I want to talk about is Windows Neptune. Now, Neptune was a project under development in 1999. It was based on Windows 2000, which they were also working on at the exact same time. So they were taking stuff from there and just using it in Neptune. There's, of course, different things in it, but a lot of it was based off of what was going on with Windows 2000. Now, this was actually scheduled to be released before 2000. Before Windows 2000, it was scheduled to be released in 1999. This would have made Neptune, not Windows 2000, but Neptune, the first Windows operating system built entirely on top of Windows NT, no DOS, no Windows 95 base at all. It would have been Neptune. In fact, the early spelling has the N and T capitalized, which could have hinted that it was the NT technology. Neptune, unfortunately, was canceled before it ever got to beta. It was canceled while it was in its alpha stages, and only one alpha build, which was build 5111, is the only one that was ever released to testers. So a lot of the pieces, like the bulk of Windows Neptune, ended up in 2000 since it was based off of Windows 2000 anyway. But other pieces ended up being put into XP, like the firewall. We would have had a firewall from Microsoft back in 1999, but it got put into Windows XP instead. That's the first one that had a really solid firewall from Microsoft. Now, this one is not very huge. It's called Windows Triton. It was actually really more of a sub-update than anything. It was planned to be a successor to Windows Neptune. And it really just had minor UI improvements and some stability improvements, but it was never even developed because Neptune was killed. So this next one I want to talk about is Windows Odyssey. It was developed in 1999, like Neptune. They were both in development at the same time. This one was actually scheduled to be released after Windows 2000, so if they hadn't killed this or Neptune, it would have basically just went Neptune, Windows 2000, and then Odyssey. But in early 2000, the teams working on Odyssey and Neptune were merged together, killing both Odyssey and Neptune, and the two together, basically elements were shoved in with each other, and the teams were put to work together to make Windows Whistler. Now I know you're thinking, Joe, this must be the next canceled version of Windows, right? No. Windows Whistler is Windows XP. So, that actually did get released. This last one I want to talk about here is Windows Longhorn. Now, this is probably the most well-known version of Windows that was never released ever. It was based on Windows XP, and it's what Vista would have been. If they hadn't killed this, it would have been Windows Vista. Don't know if they'd have called it Vista, but that's what it would have been. They had a lot of beta builds and alpha builds that were released. A lot. They put a lot of work into Longhorn. Why did they kill it then if they put so much work into it? Well, here's what happened. It was based on Windows XP. So they basically took XP and they built on it. They put features in, they changed the UI, they tweaked stuff, they adjusted stuff, they put more stuff in. That went on from the start of development, which was 2001, 2002, through 2004. By 2004, 3 years later, it was so unstable that they had to kill it. And I know this is ironic given how Vista ended up, but they had to kill it. It was just way too unstable. It could not be released in its state of how it was. So they took it and they trashed it. They said, you know what, screw it. Then they took Windows Server 2003, and then they built on that, tweaked stuff, adjusted stuff, and made Windows Vista. The reason Vista sucked right at the beginning there is because it was rushed. They had to take a server edition of Windows and then make it a regular consumer version. So they had to do a lot of stuff to it that they wouldn't have had to do had they just taken XP again and just did that again. They had to do more stuff to it in 2 years than they would have had to do to XP if they had just started with that. But then adjustments to Vista came, and then Windows 7 improved it, and then Windows 8. And Windows 8.1, here we are today. So, basically, if they had never killed any of these systems, here's how it would have went. Windows 95, Windows 96, Windows 97. There would have been nothing in 98. 99, they probably would have released Neptune. 2000, they would have released Windows 2000. And 2001, they would have released, either early 2001 or late 2000, they would have released Odyssey. And then they would have had XP. And then Longhorn probably would have been 2005, maybe even 2004. So, thank you guys for watching this video. Don't forget to click those links on the end screen. I will see you next Sunday.
Bye.
It was based on Windows 2000, which they were working on at the same time.